My name is Kirstie Pecci. I'm the director of the Zero Waste Project at Conservation Law Foundation. And I've been working on zero waste issues for a little over 12 years now. I began working on zero waste issues because I got some phone calls from people in my community who were really concerned because a local landfill, the Southbridge landfill, was going to be expanded to become a regional landfill and take a lot more municipal solid waste than it had previously. And so they asked me, can you represent us at the local hearing and try and stop this expansion? And the more I learned about landfills, the more dangerous I realized they are. Then I started learning about incineration because there was a push to expand incineration across the state, and started finding out about that and working with different advocacy groups in Boston and across Massachusetts on that issue. You had the problem, but you have to have a solution as well. And that's really when I had my epiphany and understood that zero waste is the way to go. Adopting programs that are trying to reduce waste and then reuse materials, and then only then after you've reused them, compost them or recycle them. That understanding that that's the best way to reduce toxicity and improve the circularity of our economy, that was, a lightning moment for me, and that's when I really started working on those issues. So that was the progression of how I got into zero waste. Our trash is usually called municipal solid waste. Municipal solid waste is anything that's thrown away by a business, an industry, commercial entity, institution, or that you throw away at your home. That trash ends up largely in a landfill or an incinerator. The problem with that trash, there's two problems. One is that there's just so much of it, right? Dealing with that much trash is a problem. In New England, we're disposing of, meaning we're burning or burying, about 12 to 13 million tons of trash a year. Okay, that is a lot of trash. The other problem with the trash is that it's got all different kinds of stuff in it, and running through all of it are hazardous materials. There are what we call forever chemicals mixed into your trash. There are thousands, more than 80,000 chemicals that are sold on the shelves in the United States right now. All of those are in your trash. Because we're doing such a poor job separating materials out and retaining their value, we're losing an opportunity, and this is costing us a lot of money. Our disposal and our recycling systems are costing us a great deal of money. When we look at that waste, and look at how we break it down into what its constituents are, I just see an opportunity, because while it's a problem and we need to do something with it, in actuality, we could be making and saving a lot of money by adopting zero waste programs, as well as protecting the environment, and as well as creating a lot of jobs. Because about 75% of what we're throwing away right now can be composted or recycled. And if we use programs to incentivize reduction, if we work to make less trash, we can probably get rid of that last 25% as well. What we're throwing away, about 30% of it, not only in Massachusetts, across New England and across the country, about 30% of it is food and yard waste. I would say our waste system is not managed. Our waste system is actually just a product of these greedy corporations who are making money as best they can, investing as little as they can in good systems and good policy, and in fact, opposing good policies like, for instance, deposit return systems or bottle bills. What we usually see is large corporations dictating how our waste will be handled. What happens is the private sector comes forward and says, I'm going to build a landfill, or I'm going to build a mass burn incinerator here because I know I can make money off of it. And so then they set up systems of trucking, so the materials are collected and then brought to collection and trucking, so that the materials are brought to that facility, and then they burn and bury them. And those are the businesses that make the most money in waste for those corporate interests. And I'm not taking into account at all the negative impact on the environment. Only now are we seeing cities like the city of Boston, the city of Cambridge, city of Somerville, creating zero waste plans for how to handle the waste in a different way so it saves them money and so it has less of a negative impact on the environment. The trash that we're generating, whether you're at a business or in your home, has a tremendous negative impact on the environment because most of it ends up in landfills or incinerators. All landfills leak, which means the toxic materials that are inevitably part of municipal solid waste, like batteries and bleach and all those household chemicals, are going to get into the rain that goes into the landfill. And that leachate, which is what we call that garbage coffee, even if that poisonous leachate does not escape from the liner, even if it's collected, and they do have systems at landfills to collect leachate, that landfill leachate ends up in a wastewater treatment plant, the same place that human waste goes from your toilet or your sink. That wastewater treatment plant does not have the capability of treating landfill leachate. So all the chemicals like PFAS or those other forever chemicals that we should be very worried about are being applied to farmland or fields, or they end up going into the river, or they end up off-gassing into the air. Landfills are too large, take too much waste, and take too much toxic waste for them to ever be safe. Food and yard waste and paper and cardboard and some textiles, plus water, plus no air equals methane. Methane is one of our most powerful climate changing chemicals. It's very dangerous, and it also drags all the toxic chemicals in the waste out into the air. Incinerators are just as bad. The incinerators in New England are all old mass burn incinerators where the waste is just being burnt in a chamber, right? We're also seeing lots of companies talking about pyrolysis, gasification, plasma arc, lots of fancy technologies that are actually not that fancy. They basically take the waste and at high heat make it into a synthetic fuel of some kind. Any high heat technology, whether it's mass burn, gasification, pyrolysis, plasma arc, takes the waste and using high heat, eventually the things that make up the waste get burned. When that happens, the toxics that are in the waste, without fail, end up escaping into the environment. So in other words, when you burn something, you have smoke. Some of the smoke is captured in ash, right? Like that pile of ash you have in your fireplace, that's toxic. And then the filter that you use to capture the smoke is toxic. That's got to be disposed of. And then some of it's going to escape. There's no way to avoid this. There are no incinerators in the world that don't create this toxic byproduct in some way, shape, or form. That output of incinerators and landfills is one of the ways in which this system is terribly damaging to the environment. And remember too, the part that really makes me angry is that these landfills, mega landfills and incinerators usually end up in impoverished communities where there's a large community of people of color. We find that all the time. 6 of the 7 incinerators, for instance, in Massachusetts are in or very near environmental justice communities. And that's not an accident. That happens because they find places where people need the money and have less power. And that's how you end up with an incinerator or a landfill near your home. Right now, we have a system where taxpayers, individuals, businesses are all paying for the system, but we have no control over it. So we want to make sure we shift the burden of cost and yet also get control over how this all happens so that we're protecting ourselves. One of the best ways to do that is what we call producer responsibility. And what I mean by that is if you're making something and I'm buying it, I can't tell you right now how you should make it, right? So if you're going to make it in such a way that it's as cheap as possible for you to make, and then I have to get rid of it when I'm done with it. So what we need to do is say, all right, we're going to set up a system where if you sell me something, if you sell me some toothpaste and it's in a tube that's not recyclable and then it's in a cardboard box, the corporation that makes the toothpaste has to pay for the cardboard box to be recycled, and the corporation has to pay for disposal of that tube of toothpaste. And we've seen this across Europe. We've seen this in many parts of Canada. It works very, very well, and it adds very little, like less than a cent onto the price of the product. So then we know that the materials are going to get reused or recycled or composted, and if they're not, the corporation pays for it. And as soon as you make the corporation responsible for paying for the end life of that product, they start redesigning their products. And we want to make sure that we actually are requiring the people who are doing the design to bear the costs. I don't want to just give all the power to the corporations, because if the corporations had their way, they'd do the same thing they're doing now, which is burning everything or burying everything. That's still the cheapest way to get things done as far as they're concerned. The other thing we want to keep in mind is that you want to go by what we call the zero waste hierarchy. And what that hierarchy does is say, what are the best methods for reducing our impact on the environment, saving money, and just trying to create a truly circular economy. The first thing you want to do is reduce. The next question is, can we redesign our materials so that, or spur redesign so that we then end up with a product that can be reused? And then we want to encourage reuse. We want to refill bottles. We want to use reusable grocery bags. At any time that you're throwing something away, you should be thinking, is there a way I can find a reusable alternative? And then, only then, when we've redesigned as much as we can and reduced as much as we can and reused as much as we can, only then should we be looking at recycling and composting. When we're looking at our waste problem thinking, wow, this is just too big, I don't know what to do. Everybody's got something different that they're good at, if they're interested in, they want to do, so be true to yourself. But there is a lot that we can make happen just by raising your voice. And when I say raising your voice, I mean sending a letter to the editor, I mean calling your city offices and finding out who's in charge of recycling and telling them what you think should happen. I mean calling your legislators, your state rep, and your state senators. I mean, sending an email to the Mass DEP when they start a new planning process, or when they're thinking about permitting an expansion of a landfill. Anytime that you do that, it's heard. It really is.